Hi everyone, this is Drew Wharton. Along with my colleagues at Nimble Leader, we've put together a multi-part webinar series titled Tactics for Profit Without Leaving Your Office. Our singular focus is to help you drive growth during these challenging times. The segment that begins within the next few seconds will help you activate all your tools for profit now. Hang in there everyone. We hope to see you soon. Hi everyone, this is Drew Wharton along with my colleague Jerry Lance. This morning, Jerry and I are going to address how you activate all of your tools for profit. Jerry is Managing Director with Nimble Leader and President of Stories at Work. He taps the power of narrative for branding, marketing, sales, and strategic planning. Jerry has a unique capability to energize sales and profit by using stories and narrative tools to discover the emotion, humanity, and true differentiation in B2B brands beyond merely what they do and how they do it. Now, I know everyone's on a tight time schedule, so without further delay, let's jump into the content for our webinar today. And Jerry, as you and I have discussed along with the team at Nimble Leader, our immediate focus is to help business leaders drive dramatic improvements in short-term performance without a change in strategy. This will give them the breathing room to position their business for step change growth in the future. So our focus with the group today will be to address three things: profit and loss and something that we call the tools for profit; market positioning, how companies achieve resilience in branding breakthrough, revving up the hidden selling power in a company's brand story. Pre-pandemic, everything was humming along. However, when I work with leaders, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about something called the house of profit. Every business has a house of profit. At the top, you'll see the roof, operating profit and cash flow. If a business is functioning well, operating profit and cash flow are strong, protecting the team within. Out of sight is the foundation, something I call the tools for profit. It represents the linkage between market position, price, what you charge, volume sales, product mix, cost or cash burn, and the working capital short-term investment that you have in your business. Interestingly, the unseen foundation impacts how well the roof of the house protects the inhabitants within. If the foundation is strong, the whole structure is strong. When it's sunny outside, no one really cares about the foundation. However, what happens when there's a jarring downturn? That little guy at the top of the waterfall is where many leaders sit right now as they consider the future of their business, their revenue and profit. With every downturn, leaders get together with their respective sales teams and they ask the universal question: what can we do? Jerry, what do you think is the almost universal response?
My experience, Drew, has been that they will ask for a price cut.
Now, Jerry, you're absolutely right. A lot of sales teams want to cut price to boost sales. But I find that a price decrease is often equivalent to shooting a business in the foot. I counsel leaders to be really careful before they go down this path. And here's why. Let's assume we have a base case and I sell 100 units at $1 a piece. My net sales is $100. With a cost of sales of $60, my gross margin is $40. If my SG&A expenses, selling, general, and administrative, are $30, I'm left with $10 in operating profit. Now, if I take a 3% price increase, my net sales will go up and my operating profit will increase from $10 to $13, a 30% increase. Think about that for a second. 3% equals 30%. Now, conversely, if I cut price by 3%, my net sales will go down and my operating profit will decline correspondingly. I'll go from $10 to $7. Now, if I honor my sales organization's request for a 3% decrease, I have to grow sales volume 15% to deliver the same profitability as that base case. And I have to grow volume 25% to deliver the same profit impact as a 3% price increase. These relationships are axiomatic for all businesses. I don't care if you're a manufacturer or a service provider. Also, Jerry, what's your experience relative to what happens to brand identity when a company cuts price?
Well, the potential is it could devalue your brand, and the worst risk is you could end up being perceived as a discount brand.
Jerry, that's so true. When I walk into situations with clients, they may have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their brand identity. They cut price and they shoot themselves in the foot. And so whenever we work with a leadership team, even during very difficult times, we ask them to pause, take a deep breath, and consider how their actions on price, volume, mix, cost, and working capital are linked to their market position. essentially what they stand for in the minds of their customers. Now, in reality, the exercise is not very hard. It's a simple fill in the blank. And so when I'm working with those leadership teams, I'll ask them to work on this exercise. To target customer, your company is a blank competitive frame of reference that does what? What's your point of difference? Jerry, when a leadership team goes through this exercise, what do you think happens?
Well, I suspect you'll get answers all over the map.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of variability. So with a client that I worked with a few years back, and we were talking about target customer, the president said to key influencers and decision makers of architectural firms, construction companies, and end users. The CFO said the target customer was general contractors. The vice president of sales said to companies and organizations that have offices. And the VP operations said the target customer was progressive, change-driven corporations. Now, the further leaders are moved from direct customer impact, the less specific their answer. While the president identifies key influencers and decision makers of architectural firms, construction companies, and end users, the VP of operations identifies progressive, change-driven corporation. Now, if I'm a regional sales leader, do I tell my team to call on progressive, change-driven corporations and leave it there? No. That's a recipe for disaster. They need specific guidance. Now, if we expand the discussion to include competitors' value proposition, you will get many combinations. So in this case, there are 12 target customers, there are 8 different competitive frames, and there are 7 different value propositions. What that really equates to is a lack of focus. And this lack of focus often results in burning cash needlessly as the company pursues multiple paths unrelated to their true value. Now, each one of these employees is really focused on trying to move the business forward, but if they're in a vacuum and they need to make a decision on how they're going to spend scarce resources, they're going to make that decision to spend resources based on what they think is truly important for the business. And oftentimes there's a lot of confusion. So walking through and discussing the statement of market position exercise across your leadership team in a very rigorous fashion is critically important. And assuming a business leadership team forgoes outside assistance, the exercise really won't cost a dime. And what will happen here is you'll have focus as to how the leadership team can hone in on their actual go-to-market strategy moving forward. Now, what happens often is that somebody will come back to me and they'll say, "Thanks, Drew. So what? Why should I care?" And my simple answer is, let's go back to the numbers. So we have a base case, and in this case, we have 2 products, product A and product B. And product B sells for $1 a unit. Through rigorous market positioning, we find that the actual value to the customer is revealed to be $2 per unit, not $1 per unit. Jerry, you're the leader for the business. What do you think you might do?
Well, I'd happily take a price increase.
It's absolutely right. We're going to take a price increase. So in this case, I might increase product B by 20%. And what will happen here is that the combined profit for the business without a change in strategy goes to $12. And that's significant. What we've just achieved is a 20% total company improvement in profitability by taking a price increase on 10% of the business. Now, sometimes somebody will come back to me and will say, the value of product B was $2. But if I'm the line operator, if I'm the CEO or the COO, I want to manage my risk for the business. And so I might take a 20% price increase on product B right now, see what happens in the marketplace, and then come back 6 months later and take another 20% price increase. I know what the value is, but I do need to manage risk. The point, there are profit opportunities for your business in a down economy. What it requires is that you pursue market position and really understand the numbers. And in many respects, that first step is relatively costless. Now, Jerry, you and I have discussed how we might provide tangible value with no cash burn to assist leadership teams during these challenging times. And here's what we can do with those of you on the webinar today relative to market position. We'll engage your leadership team with a video conference facilitation on market position specific to your company. We'll identify congruence or gaps across your leadership relative to the first pass market position, and we'll identify implications and next steps. Your front investment is no more than 5 minutes per cross-functional leader. Each leader must execute the simple fill-in-the-blank statement of market position with no communication with the rest of the team. What we want is your top-of-mind thoughts. Once the pre-work is completed, we will take it from there. Okay, This completes our discussion on market position. The next question is, where do we go from here? So at this point, what I want to do is hand the reins over to my colleague, Jerry Lance.
Thanks, Drew. How do we take Drew's work on positioning and rev up the hidden selling power in your brand story? Maybe your brand is suffering a bit. Maybe it's dry as day-old toast. And the real question to you is, there's several of them. Is your brand not keeping up with the current marketplace? Is it a bit tired and dusty? Are you digital as you can be? Are you not winning new business? Are your sales declining, which is worse? Are you not standing out visually and in messaging from your competitors? Are you all telling the same old story? And worse, is everyone in your company, particularly the sales department, telling a different story about your brand? Well, how can you tell a brand story of exceptional value? Well, before we answer that question, and I give you some tools to do that, let's look at an example of a B2B branding that's not very clear in the story that it's telling. And you might ask yourself, is your brand hiding behind generic cliches? Here we have a brand, CRC, I don't know what it is. Proven Global Solutions is its tagline. Drew, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Based on what you see here, do you have a clue what they do?
Jerry, I look at it and I really don't. I'm not exactly sure whether or not this company is selling doggy bags or whether they're selling pharmaceuticals.
Well, they don't sell either one of those, Drew. In fact, somebody got to them and they've refaced their entire brand and they've sharpened their positioning. And they did it not only by telling a functional story, but elevating the human side of a functional brand. CRC, chemical solutions to keep you moving. And that's true in trucking, that's true in airlines, it's true in railroads and marine. And that U is very important. And keeping your company moving and all of your vehicles moving is critical. That's at the heart of the need state of the people they're selling to. So now their solution is much clearer. Instead of just CRC, Proven Global Solutions, nobody knows what that means, but now it's very clear what they stand for, both in a functional standpoint, from a functional standpoint, and with a touch of humanity. And that's a point that I'd like to make to you. B2B brands must connect with both competence. You're functionally great, you deliver benefits, but also you're selling with emotion. You have to link your brand's humanity, which you may not have thought about, with your product's function. You have to use narrative thinking to get to story-based messaging. So let me give you 3 foundational tools or stories for powerful story-built brands. The first one is target persona. It's a living profile that traces the customer's journey to purchase. The second is lay out your brand values, but not just in generic terms. You have to prove them with very specific and particular success stories. And thirdly, make a brand's promise, but offer an experience, not just what you do, but what the customer receives. Make it about them. And for heaven's sakes, talk in plain English. Forget the marketing mumbo jumbo or your industry jargon. So, why stories? Well, stories are remembered up to 22 times more than facts alone. And this is out of a Stanford University study. Now, of course, stories and facts together are the most powerful kind of presentation that you can make. But stories are the things that usually get left out. And I think that they have to be added in. You have to start using a dose of what I call story thinking or narrative thinking. And it's a human tendency we all have. We're natural storytellers, whether we recognize it or not. So let's tap into that natural tendency in our marketing. So let's start with the first one, personas, and tracing that journey to purchase from you. And when I say identify the turning point when the customer most needs what you have to offer, I'm thinking crisis or struggle. That's a narrative element. What crisis or struggle are they having where they most need what you have to offer? And if you play that back to them in your marketing materials and in your website and your taglines, they're going to go, your target will say, hey, they get me in the world I live in. I'm interested. Let's talk. That's what a turning point does. So think about tracing that journey and looking for the turning point where they most need you. Second, all corporations, all brands have values, but I play a game with customers and clients, and I call it brand is and brand means. Let's take an obvious example, Harley Davidson. It's iconic in America. What is Harley Davidson? A lot of people answer to me, motorcycles in America. And I would say it like this, motorcycles in America. Well, of course they are. But what does Harley Davidson mean? Freedom of the open road, ride the dream, be a rebel, be a bit of a gang member. So those are all fine, but if you can, and they're normal and natural human language, I hope you noticed, but if you tell success stories that support your values, you'll find that you can bring them to life. And that's where you find something that I call fresh language. Now, the third tool is your promise statement. Most people start promise statements with, we do this, we deliver that, we help you, blah, 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 blah. But the brand is actually the promise of an experience. And most importantly, it's the experience of that promise delivered. And so the customer's experience is the most important element of this. So benefits and functions are fine, but start thinking what experience you offer your customers, but in their terms, not yours. What would they say? Play that back to them yet again. Now, there is a nice little wrinkle when you start thinking this way. You can discover and capture your brand experience in fresh language. Here's a great example that I love in the IT space. Rackspace is a cloud hosting firm. In fact, they claim to be the #1 managed cloud company. But they have a distinctive piece of language in the IT space. Everybody in IT talks about support, but Rackspace talks about fanatical support. And IT executives, and I've talked to many of them in large presentations, will attach the word fanatical to Rackspace. So they have made this their promise, and nobody else in their space is using this language. And interestingly enough, they use fresh language all the way across. They call their employees rackers. And so it is a full package of fresh language and fresh imagery. And they're doing quite well, by the way. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. That's the power of fresh language. So let's apply these tools from some experiences that I've had with clients, and let's see how using personas and reward statements can work to freshen even the most powerful brand. BusBoss came to us and they said, we need to dial up our marketing outreach. We didn't touch their brand. It was wonderful. The colors were wonderful. The name is strong. They have a nice icon. BusBoss, very digital. That's kind of a digital carrot there. Everybody understands it. Transportation management software. Okay, that's the category they're in. That's their industry. And their tagline, school bus routing software for the 21st century. Okay, pretty assertive. And they support it with, quote unquote, full-featured transportation management software. So now we know it's full-featured. But we looked at that and we said, school bus routing software for the 21st century? What does that really mean in the cold light of dawn? It just means your software is modern. Well, of course, all software should be modern. You wouldn't be selling Windows 95. So we said, we need to do a little research. We did some persona homework. We talked to school bus drivers. We talked to the dispatcher. We talked to parents. We talked to teachers. We talked to the superintendent. We talked to the IT person. We talked to everybody involved with the school bus operation. They all had one concern, the children in the bus. And this is what we came up with when we applied the personas and the reward statement. BusBoss, because your precious cargo comes first. That's the most important thing. The children, the people, the kids in the bus. Safety first to the last stop is what they put on their website. And their CEO attributed half of their 20% growth after they initiated this new positioning to the new positioning. That is the power of doing careful persona work and a reward statement that's experiential, because your precious cargo comes first. And nobody in their category is talking with that kind of fresh language. Drew, I'm going to ask you a question. Here's a client that I had, Miller Felpax. Do you have a clue what they do?
Would you ready to take a look at this? And my immediate answer is no. I'm drawn to the big blue globe, and I think of the United Nations.
Well, yeah, it's not the United Nations, but it is a united company around creating railroad parts for railroad engines and railroad cars in particular. Yes, simple values, a world of difference is strong. They have all their values there, but it's not really clear what they do, nor is it clear the advantage that they have in the marketplace. Nobody knew that they were inventors, engineers, and that they could turn projects and completely new parts around in just a couple days. After the persona and brand story work, we created Miller Ingenuity. We hearkened back to their heritage. They've been around since 1947, traditional railroad, but ingenuity showed how sharp and smart they were, and their tagline was invention, engineering, and execution. And when they went to execute that in marketing messaging, they did things like this. Think about the box, which is a very creative execution to support a product that they invented. These are the parts necessary to overhaul the truck, which is of a railroad engine, which are the wheels and the truck that it rides on. The genius of this is all their competitors just threw all these parts in a box, in a jumble, and threw them at their customers, shipped them to their customers, and they had to separate them. What this box did, however, was place the parts in the order that they were needed, first to last, to be put onto the railroad engine. It's computerized how they do this, so everything is tightly under control, and it saves the customer time and money, labor costs, resources, so that this is a big savings to their customer. So one key word, they applied ingenuity, and they are ever more heroic to their customers. Now that you've seen that there are three quick tools that you can use to create a story brand, let me give you some survival tactics that you can apply in this current disrupted marketplace that we're in. The first one, stop hiding your competitive advantage. And if you've done your brand story work, you need to be very clear and vocal about your story. Identify what's your story with the tools that I outlined before. It's the one thing your competitors can't copy. Yet most marketers don't put enough time and work into creating the human side of their story. Second, form that human emotional hook in this search first SEO world. That's how you make your brand stand out. It's a bit like Miller Ingenuity or Bus Boss and Your Precious Cargo. People will say, bring me those ingenious people. Bring me the people who talk about precious cargo. You want to create that hook and associate it with your brand. Now here's the third tactic, and this helps to reinforce the experiential side of a promise. Stop talking about features only. Let's start talking about branded experiences, and I'm going to show you here how that equals added value. Most products start as a commodity. Let's just take the example of a coffee, the coffee category. In the very beginning, it was just beans in a burlap bag, costing whatever, pennies per cup. But then it became a packaged good. Yes, it was in a package. There's old A&P's 8 o'clock coffee you ground it in the store. So again, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of packaging, and it's maybe part of $1 per cup. Finally comes along somebody like Dunkin' Donuts, and they add a service element. Not only can you pick up your coffee at a self-serve window when you drive up in your car, but they offer breakfast and a lot of other things, donuts, of course, along with your coffee, and the coffee is about somewhere over $1. But finally comes along Starbucks, who reimagines from a humanistic standpoint the entire coffee business. They said coffee can be a social beverage. They said that Starbucks could be the third place. What did they mean by that? the place you go to have a cup of coffee, possibly work, meet with friends. So it's not home, it's not work, it's a third place, a place to go and enjoy a really fine cup of coffee. Drew, I know that you have, I know you love this chart. Can you tell me why that is?
And Jerry, I do love this chart, and here's why. If you go back to that example that we talked about earlier, we looked at a 3% price increase drives a 30% improvement in profitability. When I look at a slide like this, and this assumes a real deep dive on target personas, and I look at experience versus service, let's say the difference between Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. If the average price for a cup of coffee at Starbucks is $4 and the average Dunkin' Donuts is $1.50, that's way more than a 3% price increase. And so there really is, by diving into a deep understanding of the persona, there's an opportunity to capture the hidden profit potential in terms of what the offering is here. So it's very exciting.
Absolutely. Experiences equal added value. Thank you, Drew. So stop selling generic products, processes, or services. Differentiate with humanity. Connect with both function and humanity. Be human, be desired, and start building your story-driven brand now. And here's a way that we could do this together. I would send you a little chart that could help you define your promised experience from the customer's viewpoint. First of all, messaging should create action. So when I buy from, put your company, your brand there, I, meaning the customer, feel, experience, sense after they've worked with you, a certain reward, a feeling, a satisfaction. Write those down and support. What are the reasons to believe that that experience is forthcoming? What features, benefits even, proof stories, testimonials. Behind every testimonial is actually a story. Those are all reasons to believe that you can deliver that experiential promise. So here's the offer that we're making to you. We can draft that promise and support with a leadership team video conference. I want you to think and respond like a customer, agree amongst yourselves to the language and meaning of your statements, and then you can activate them in your marketing and sales and service and even in your culture. It's very simple. It'll just take 15 minutes of pre-work, although I'd like you to work individually. But cross-functionally, I want everybody in the executive team to participate. And then we'll have an online facilitation session with that team, and we will hammer out a single-minded point of view on the action you want people to take, the promise you're offering them, and the reasons to believe it.
Jerry, thank you so much for a very fun and informative segment. You know that I believe this, that a brand story expertly told will have a huge impact on driving revenue growth for a business. Okay, everyone, we have two offers requiring no cash burn, one on market position and one on brand promise. Our belief is that if you bring these two sessions together, you'll get tangible value that will help you drive your business forward in the immediate term. Now, if a company decides that they want to move forward with Nimble Leader, let's take a minute to walk through our typical approach to market. First, we engage in leadership interviews to tap into the emotional energy of the group. This is really quite important. We summarize the findings across key themes, and then we review our findings with the CEO before we share these findings with the broader group. The goal is no surprises. We work with the CEO to determine next steps consistent with his or her direction. Oftentimes, this involves taking the SHAPE diagnostic, Strategic Health Performance Evaluation, by the leadership team. If the interviews are qualitative, SHAPE is more quantitative in nature, and we want to bring both the qualitative and quantitative together prior to stepping into market positioning and developing that brand strategy, which is so important. Now, assuming we have a rock-solid market position, we'll step into the strategy development for the business with a clear eye on the tools for profit, both short-term and mid-term. We want to remember that we're here to drive operating profit and cash flow. And that strategy session will help us identify those quick attack initiatives that are both internal and external to the organization. Okay, Jerry, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Jerry or myself. We welcome the opportunity to speak with you. Also, if you missed our other webinars in the series, we're happy to share our thoughts on these additional segments, including reduced costs now, improving manufacturing profitability, grow e-commerce revenue, and drive lead generation. Okay, everyone, this brings us to the end of our session. We hope you had a great experience. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Take care and have a great day.